Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surabhi and Nigel. And before I sort of toss it across to my colleagues, just want to say that the blast in Delhi, the blast near Red Fort in the national capital, 8 confirmed casualties. And of course, a number of people injured. Our hearts go out to the families, hoping for a speedy recovery to those who were injured in those blasts. As we understand it, of course, investigations are still underway in terms of what really was the cause behind it. We'll keep you up to date in terms of, what really comes out of it. But very, very, terrible tragedy, really, absolutely unexpected, happened yesterday evening. Guys, hi.
Yeah, absolutely, Prashant. Thoughts and prayers go out to the families of all those who've been affected, and we hope that there is a conclusion to investigations and clarity emerges in a speedy manner. And our best wishes, of course, to those who are also injured. So starting with that somber note this morning, and more on this as we go along.
That's right. Heartbreaking visuals there coming up for you on the screen. Prayers and support to all our brothers and sisters in the capital. Need to, stay strong, and our investigative agencies will try to pull out, all the required information. But really heartbreaking scenes out there.
All right, absolutely. And I think, as I said, we will have our reporters there, and we'll get you some live updates in terms of what's happening at this point in time as we go along. But, to take it to the markets now, sort of pivoting to what happened overnight, and of course, what's the scene like this morning. Strong rebound, by the way, in U.S. equities. S&P 1.5% higher. Nasdaq was up about 2%. So this is a very strong rebound, actually, if anything. There was no major macro news flow. The only, of course, thing was that the weekend progress, which was about ending the government shutdown. The Senate has voted in favor. It's moved on to the House. And of course, betting markets, etc., are all hoping that the government will reopen by the middle of November. Which is now, right? Now, this is the best one-day rally in the Nasdaq since May. The Nasdaq was down 5% last week, and it went up nearly 2.5% yesterday. Nvidia up 6%. Names like Palantir up about 8.5% if you can move the graphics along. And there you go on your screen. And I'm mentioning these two names, Nvidia and Palantir, because these are the names which took the largest knocks. Nvidia had lost about $500 billion in market capitalization, yesterday. The thing is, and I said this yesterday as well, a lot of skepticism around the return on investment on AI and whether this is a bubble, etc. There are two things on the other side, two arguments on the other side. One, of course, is the fact that you've got the breadth of earnings beat across corporate America, which is very, very strong, the strongest since 2021. And this is not just limited to Magnificent Seven companies. And point number two, you've got an environment where the Fed is expected to perhaps ease more in December. We got a cut last. There is there are perhaps noises and a bit of a turn towards fiscal expansion as well. So those are not conditions for the end of any bull market, but we'll have to keep an eye. Now, reports that Apple, and just to continue with that tech bit, reports that Apple is going to delay release of next year's version of the iPhone Air, and this was reported by a publication, and the reason being cited is that the first edition did not do all that well, so they want to postpone the next version. In terms of the semiconductor ecosystem, AMD, which is the large player, is going to host its Analyst Day in New York later tonight. And I think this will be important for no other reason but just to kind of, as investors, try to gauge the strength, the sustenance of this big spend towards building out AI infrastructure. The 10-year macro markets, nothing very much, 2 basis points higher. Oil was up about 0.7. We're at about $64 on Brent. Later today, bond markets are closed. And this is the Veterans Day holiday. Cash bond markets are closed. But equities, etc., are trading. Before I get to levels, just one more thing. Today, of course, locally speaking, in terms of queues, it's the last phase of voting as far as Bihar state elections are concerned. which means that later today, by about 6:30, 7 o'clock, you'll have exit polls, which will come, and we will put out those exit polls as well. And I think that'll be interesting and important at the margin if those exit polls were to show something very unexpected. Markets, of course, are are expecting the incumbents to come back to power. So those are visuals. So today is the last phase, and the exit polls come out later today. The election results, the final results, are on the 14th. Something to track later today. Now, just to tie in the levels here, Nifty, of course, is breaking out of a falling channel, a downward sloping falling channel. We nearly hit the 20-day moving average. We fell short by about 4 or 5 points. So the 20-day is 25,658. The high was 25,653 yesterday. So that's the first level. We're almost there, but very near-term levels. And then, of course, 25,800 is the next resistance level, near-term. Support stands at the swing low of 25,318. Bank Nifty near-term target is 58,300, which is basically where a bunch of highs are bunched up together. And support is a 20-day moving average, which is 57,665, and then the low of 57,157. All very close by, within 1.5–2% for both the Nifty and the Nifty Bank as we put those levels out. GIFT Nifty gives you a quick sense of how we're likely to start, and we'll look at more things. So 30 points higher on the GIFT Nifty. What's the F&O stats and the positioning looking like? Nigel is standing by with exactly that. Nigel, over to you.
Well, the two big cues that we're going to be tracking from here on the global front is going to be the India-US trade deal. So all eyes on that. You got some sound bites overnight, but hard to get a direction on that front. And the Bihar election outcome as well in terms of the domestic cue that you're looking at. And the street will be hoping that the ruling BJP comes out tops out there. So those are the two big cues. In yesterday's trading session, the FIs, they returned to their selling ways. So they sold close on 4,000 contracts. Not just that, they went ahead and they added some short positions as well. They added close to 4,000 short positions in yesterday's trading session, around 4,900 contracts on the short side. And that took the short positions to around 87%. So from the start of the series, you've seen a big jump in terms of the short positions coming from the FIs. In percentage terms, it had gone down to the 70s. Now we're back at around 87% or thereabouts. The good news, though, is the last couple of trading sessions, they're writing more puts than calls. So for the second session running, there is some writing that we're seeing from the FIs on index options. Moving to the strikes that we're looking at, well, the 25,650 call, yes, they saw a good amount of open interest build up. The premium out there is roughly around 50 rupees. On the downside, the 25,500 put as well did add close to 60 lakh shares. And out there, you had a mix of activity. There were some signs of buying as well. Premium ballpark around 20 rupees or thereabouts. Remember, today is the weekly expiry, so expect an additional big move in the final 60 minutes or so. You have the last phase of voting in Bihar as well. You'll get some murmurs that will be coming in there. So I'm expecting a big swing in the last hour of trade, given that it's weekly expiry as well. In terms of levels that you're looking at, well, just punching in, the options data level, as well as where the 20 DMA comes in at, 25,700. That seems to be a bit of a resistance mark. On the downside, last week's low, that becomes the important mark. And for the Nifty, it needs to get past the 20 DMA. While the Nifty Bank, it needs to protect that 20 DMA on a closing basis. And that's what happened even in the last week. We breached it in today, but we managed to close above that. Two stocks I'm looking at, Britannia, because Mr. Varun Berry, after the kind of change and transformation he's brought about at the company, well, he's going to be moving on. It was on expected lines, but maybe the announcement has come sooner than expected. So you could expect some bit of pressure on this particular name. And the other one is Sale. Yesterday, it was moving very, very well. It's moved into the F&O band. We'll keep an eye out on this stock because after a while, Sale has been moving quite well. Big open interest build up, 2.5% higher as well, moves into the F&O band. So both these two stocks on my radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And that news on Mr. Berry indeed was a little surprising because there's zero handover and he resigned. His notice period was waived off and he moved on from immediate effect. So in that sense, there's a bit of a vacuum and we have an interim CEO taking charge and no one as MD at the, at Britannia for the next 2-3 weeks till the 15th of December. So more on this as we go along. By the way, before we introduce our first guest on the show, let's take a look at the latest that's coming in from the US president. He was speaking to reporters yesterday and he said that there will be a deal with India, but it's going to be a different kind of a deal. Take a look.
Well, right now, the tariffs are very high on India because of the Russian oil, and they've stopped doing the Russian oil. It's been reduced very substantially. Yeah, we're going to be bringing the tariffs down. We're making a deal with India, a much different deal than we had in the past. So right now, they don't love me, but they'll love us. Again, we're getting a fair deal, just a fair trade deal. We had pretty unfair trade deals. They're very good negotiated, Sergio, so you have to take a look at that, if you would, please. But we're getting close, Scott. I think we're pretty close to doing a deal that's good for everybody, right?
Okay, so doesn't leave us too wiser, but he's saying there will be a deal at some point, and those tariffs will come down at some point.